Well, greetings everybody. Great to be with you. I hope that you are faring well in the midst of a 1 in 50 year storm that many of us are experiencing at the moment and weathering it okay. So this morning I wanted to talk to you about listening with your heart. And the scripture in Luke 8:18 says this: "Therefore consider carefully how you listen." And in the Passion Translation it says this way: "So pay careful attention to your hearts as you listen to my teaching, for to those who have open hearts even more revelation will be given to them until it flows." So we're talking about listening with your heart, considering how we're listening. And when we in order to listen, we need to create space in our world. We need to be able to have silence in our world so that we can listen first and foremost to God, but also be able to listen to other people. Now, I was introduced to this concept, and one of the ways of doing this, of being able to listen better, is what's called the discipline of silence. And I was introduced to the concept of the discipline of silence on the night of my salvation experience back in 1976. And I distinctly remember responding to an altar call, accepting Jesus into my heart and life. And then the minister said to us, "I want you to now go out," and it was on a farm in the Southern Highlands south of Sydney. And he said, "Go out and just spend 15 minutes alone with God," and in what they call the discipline of silence. And I still to this day distinctly remember going out into a paddock, looking up at the stars, and everything was just incredibly radiant, and it was like God was right there with me. And in that moment of silence, that discipline of silence, I learned what it was to experience the presence of God, to hear the voice of God. And that's been something that sustained me all these years, some 45 years later, as I walk with God. And when we talk about a discipline of silence, I think is fasting from speaking so that we can listen to God. And Richard Foster, who wrote Celebration of Discipline, he puts it this way: "Simply to refrain from talking without a heart listening to God is not silence." And so if we're gonna stop talking, we need to be able to listen to God. John Mark Comer, in his book that many of us have been reading lately, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, he says this: "The noise of the modern world makes us deaf to the voice of God, drowning out the one input we need most." There's so much white noise out there. To actually be able to experience the discipline of silence is a very, very powerful thing. Dallas Willard said this: "Silence is frightening because it strips us as nothing else does." When we're left alone with God and our thoughts in that place of silence, it can be a very frightening place. Sometimes we've got to think about what we're hearing, what we're considering, what we're hearing. Hearing is widely thought to be the last of the senses that goes before we die. And sometimes we've got to hear our way out of a situation or a circumstance or a problem. When we can't see our way out, when we can't feel our way out, we need to be able to hear our way out. Hearing what God is saying to us, hearing what is being spoken to us by God in a particular situation. And so, listening with our heart is to summarize our understanding of what has been said. When we listen with our heart, we say, "Okay, God, is this what you're saying?" And so we listen with our heart, and we're able to summarize what we think God is saying to us in any given situation or moment. Listening with heart is reframing what we have just heard. So it's understanding what we've said. It's reframing what's been said to us and what we've heard. And listening with our heart is it's not a passive skill. It's an active art. It's something that we actually need to be able to engage in as an art form, rather than just a skill a life skill that we have. Listening from the heart is letting others know that we've understood what has been said to us, whether that be God or other people. Listening to our heart Listening with our heart to God is one thing. Listening with our heart to other people is another thing. And so it builds this bridge of empathy when we can listen with our heart. I think in conversation, the role of speaking is overrated. We actually need to be able to listen more than we speak. And the old cliche goes that we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So why not let our listening be more effective than our speaking? And so whether we are speaking to God or to people, whether we're in conversation with God or with people, let's consider carefully how we listen. Let's listen with our heart. God bless you. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.